Mike. What time is it, Mike?
It's time to talk, Curtis.
Talking straight about leadership traits.
Leadership trait talk time.
We're here with you tonight. Excited to be with you.
Yes, and today's guest is...
We have Kennan Walker joining us today. Mike and I were talking just briefly before we started the podcast about some remodeling he was doing in his house. Mike, I'm going to share a little quick story about that.
Yeah, so I was telling Curtis, Kennan, that it's funny. We've had this house. It was built in like the early 80s.
Oh, wow.
And there is nothing in this house that I've gotten into that's just gone easy. There's always something, right? So we're tearing the cabinets out and we find some mold and water leak issues, and plumbing is not up to code. You know, it's just always something. And I feel like, you know, if I could have gotten off to the right start on this house, I wouldn't have to deal with all these issues, right?
So, yeah.
So what does that have to do with leadership trait talk?
And I think it leads us to a topic that you're very passionate about that you want to share with the listeners.
Yeah, Mike and Curtis, no, I appreciate being here. I got a brand new pair of tennis shoes I laced on for this, so it's great to be here on your podcast. And Mike, I love that story, and I'll bet you when you closed on that house, you and your family had this immense excitement about how great this experience was going to be, how wonderful everything was going to be. And I know, and I know a lot of leaders, and I've been there myself, where I got promoted into a new role or I was given a new team to lead, and it was just like that. Right. I came home and I told my wife how great this is going to be. This team is going to be awesome. This is the product or system or offering that we provide.
Right.
It couldn't be better.
Yeah.
Well, then you moved in, didn't you? And as you were saying, the plumbing leaked, the floor needed to be replaced. You found all these issues, and we do that as leaders. We will recognize that teams aren't perfect. We aren't perfect.
Right.
Well, once we get in and look under, you know, the rug, we find that there are some issues, and those issues are what I want to talk to you about, and that is leadership or management debt. And so within your house, like you were experiencing, it was debt that you now took on in the form of work you had to remodel or work through. Right. We have to do the same with leaders. So let me back up a little bit and share some of the context of where this topic came to me. And that is the importance that I hope all of your listeners embrace. And that is something that we have to lean on each other as leaders, leader to leader networks, just like you guys do on your podcasts and your leaders. But when someone is new that comes into a company, all companies in every industry have some process of onboarding, of new hire orientation. Right. They'll give them a partner or a buddy and get them up to speed as to how the company works, what the culture's like, where they can find their resources, all of that.
Right.
But often, you know, we've got companies that will take a new leader and then say, there you go, here's your new team. Can't wait for you to find all of the issues within this team.
Right. Good luck. Right.
So I know that the three of us have all been a part of programs where we will partner a leader to another leader. So that brand new leader gets somebody who's experienced, who can help them out, show them the ropes of leadership, not just being a part of a new employee. And I know, like you guys, I learn as much, if not more, from the new leaders that I buddy up with than I teach them. There's no question. I know they would disagree, but the truth is my own leadership journey has benefited by being that kind of a coach to other new leaders. Yeah. And I've got one now that brought this great experience to me. He's an engineer. So for the listeners out there that are in science and engineering and technical communities, will probably be familiar with, and if you're not, you can Google it, the technical debt registry. Mm-hmm. And that is, as we are developing a product, and if you think about the analogy of we're developing ourselves in our own leadership journey, when you're developing a product, you have to go through various testing and developmental stages. What comes out of the testing, you have to analyze and work on that development to further the product until it's ready to be released. Once it's released, you get user feedback. You go back and incorporate that. There's a constant cycle of improvement there, just like us as leaders. Well, because of time that you got to launch a product, maybe funding challenges that your company's under, you may be rushed through that schedule. You guys ever had that?
Yeah.
Told to go faster, spend less money. Well, a technical debt registry is something that the engineering community will use to then actually capture those items that they were having to skip over, because you cannot skip it forever. You've got to be able to come back and work on it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this new leader who was partnered with me to start off on his journey, he actually shared with a concept that he came up with because he was using technical debt registries. They said, you know, Kennan, part of my journey here, I've recognized the team I've inherited, I've got a management debt registry that the past leaders running this team actually built up debt that's now all on me. And it's a lot, Mike, like the house that you bought, which I'm sure is now wonderful. Is it not wonderful now?
Every time I do anything, it's always another problem. But yeah.
As long as the honey-do list gets shorter each weekend for you, Mike, does it?
No, it's all good though.
Okay. Well, think about this management debt registry. We've got to think about, okay, so if I've just inherited a team, I've got to be focused on what is the debt that I've now inherited. You've probably got employees who have surprisingly low performance reviews and you're wondering why. You've probably met employees that seem very disenfranchised on your team and you're wondering why, because you're as excited as can be. You're in a new role.
Yeah.
So assessing what that registry is important. But what I've found when I talk with other leaders about this concept, what I've found is we have a natural tendency to go into these roles with a very self-focused view. And what I've found in that is you were either promoted into the role because you're awesome. And so you say, I'm awesome, I'm going to continue to be awesome. So that leader is naturally ego-driven.
Yeah.
Or at the very other end of the spectrum, a lot of the leadership roles I've been put into, I was just sitting around wondering, at what point are they going to call me out that I have no idea what I'm doing?
Right. When are they going to realize that?
Never happened.
Yeah. Right.
Imposter syndrome. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, it's actually happening right now, Mike. But yes. Yeah. So somewhere in that spectrum is where our natural emotions go when we're put into a new role to lead a new team. But the problem is that entire spectrum, no matter where you are on it, either ego-driven or insecure-driven or somewhere in the middle, it's all self-focused.
Right.
Your energy is all focused about yourself, and it's likely it means you're looking upwards to maintain your relationship with your own superiors and not the team themselves.
Yeah.
So I think it's an important thing for us all to grasp in our own leadership journey that, one, you are going to inherit debt as a new leader.
Absolutely.
So it's important for us to recognize that we're naturally going to come into those new leadership roles with a self-focus on us. It's just the way we're wired.
Right.
But inherently recognize the way you did, Mike, with your new home, you are inheriting debt. It's a management debt registry, just like a technical debt registry. And you got to roll up your sleeves, dig into it, and assess what that is and embrace it so that your team really gets off to the right start.
Right. I think that's a great point. I also think that with time, we can create our own debt.
Yeah.
Sometimes we recognize how we handled a situation or team conflict or a customer interface with our team, that it's real important to reflect on ourselves and see what kind of debt we're creating.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a great point, Mike.
I've had instances where, you know, I've had that go-to person on the team. And so projects, big things they go off and do, and I notice I'm creating debt with other members of the team, and I've got to make sure that I'm doing the right thing to develop everybody.
Right.
So I love the point though. I also think that a lot of times when we inherit those issues, we've inherited trust issues. So like how the manager or the leader is seen, right? So it's like you've got to get in there and help them see that you're going to be different. You're going to approach things differently. You're going to listen to them differently.
Yeah.
You'll interface with the leaders above you differently, and how you interchange with them. So that's another, you know, piece of debt that we have to pay attention to.
Right. Ken, in your leadership roles, have you ever gone into a position where you did not inherit some sort of debt?
Never.
Okay.
Never. There was always debt. And Mike, I like the way you put it, that you got to be cognizant of what debt you may be leaving behind, not only for yourself or another. Any kind of difficult conversation we're avoiding. Any challenging employee that you're just struggling to really bond with, that's debt you're adding. It doesn't go away. It's just building up. So it's a great point, Mike.
Yeah. I really like the concept.
I love the concept.
Really
yeah, it really resonates.
That helps us always, we always think we're to flip it, instead of saying debt, we're adding assets or funds, but we have to look, we always have to be, 360-degree feedback, looking at ourselves, self-assessing to see what kind of debt we're leaving behind. And that's super important, because the team needs to understand their feedback to us prevents debt. And a lot of people forget that, right? So we have to, that's why feedback is so important, to let that ego, put that ego aside, put that self aside, and ask, how am I impacting this team? You guys have to give me that true feedback. How many leaders do you know are willing to do that? It's tough. That's a real tough thing.
Yeah, it is tough.
Vulnerable.
Perhaps that feedback you're talking about is the appreciation of the equity that we can build up, and that as leaders, we ought to be focusing on what equity we can make rather than the debt we can leave behind.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
I really like it, Kennan.
Great concept, Kennan. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
You bet. And thanks for having me, guys.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kennan.
Thanks.
See you.
Bye. All right, Mike. So,
well, that was a great interview.
Yeah,
I like that concept.
The technical debt and leadership debt. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
And it's so important for us as leaders to remember that, yes, we inherit debt,
right,
but we can leave a lot of debt behind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And how are we building that equity?
Right.
I've heard think of like a bank account.
Yeah,
right. If you have an issue, you make a withdrawal.
Right.
How many deposits are you making? So
I think the first time I read about that was Stephen Covey.
Yeah,
and he was talking about the trust bank and deposits.
I love the management technical versus technical debt.
Right, the leadership debt. Really because if you think about it, just like he said, he's never had a role that he didn't walk into that debt. Mm-hmm. And I would say the same probably, and you probably would too, right, in your career. However, I've never had that kind of a focus on it, I don't think.
Right.
So I think that really helps us understand and be more intentional about addressing it.
Right. You get in there and you're thinking about, you really are thinking about yourself. You're thinking about how am I going
how you
to
look, how the team's looking at you,
versus looking around for that debt.
Right.
And sometimes that can help you really build a better foundation and get a lot done.
Build some good rapport. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, I really like that. It was excellent. And so if you're enjoying the podcast,
if you're inclined to,
or if you're not enjoying it and you just want to share it with other people,
and you think somebody else might enjoy it,
please
be sure and like
subscribe.
Subscribe.
We need your subscriptions on YouTube.
Right.
Please.
That helps get the word out. And give us a like. Certainly give us a like, but be sure and subscribe.
And we're looking for feedback.
Absolutely.
Criticisms also. Just be gentle. We're not professionals. Any topics, if you're interested in an interview, we're all for it.
Right. We like to focus on everyday leaders that are out there in the field doing everyday leadership stuff. So if you know somebody like that or are one of those, then let us know.
Absolutely. And lessons you've learned that you think you've got scars from and you really wish somebody would have told you about it, that's the kind of stuff we want to post and talk about.
So thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks everybody.
Bye. All right, man.
We're doing an intro, Kennan, so.
Oh, good. This is a dry run, right?
Right.
Okay.
Hey, why don't you chime in too? Go, hey, Mike, you guys do it for us.
What's your intro again?
It's, hey, Mike, what time is it, Mike?
It's time to talk, Curtis.
Talking straight about leadership traits. Or no,
leadership trait time. You always get that wrong.
Hey, Mike, what time is it, Mike?
It's time to talk, Curtis. Talking straight about leadership traits.
That's right, only straight talk here. Hey everyone, Curtis here.
And Mike.
Yeah, don't forget. Should we try that again? Okay. Do we want to use that part? Or do we want to say that?
Yeah, let's just go straight into.
So is your podcast a video podcast? So you guys, video is recorded as well?
On YouTube, man.
It's both.
I would have picked a different location and a different shirt.
You can go change. We have time. Not that I
think it's fine. Yeah.
Curtis is usually in like graphic tees.
And you don't want stripes or anything on a video, right?
You don't want a lot of patterns, right?
Okay. But do you think the headset's okay?
Oh yeah, I think.
Yeah. I mean, well, are you on a laptop?
We gave him some more
bloopers
blooper stuff. Yeah. He's got some more blooper material.